Welcome to the Healing Manifest podcast, the one true place for you to learn to becoming your best self. Each week we have a new guest on to teach you and help you learn through their experience how to become your best self. This week we have a special guest. He's a psychotherapist as well. He has his own podcast and he has his own skincare brand called What's Good. I want you guys please welcome my guest here this week, Shane Lyons.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Excited, man. And it's so funny. Yes, we're just turning on the camera here now, but we literally had a whole podcast episode before I can even get this started here.
It's the B-roll.
I love it.
It's not film, but it's a B-roll.
It's from my med show, I was like, okay, me and you, we're in the same sync. We're in sync. We're on the same mindset. And
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of what you talk about, and I'm like, this is so much of what I wanted to bring on the podcast. As I said, it's all about becoming your best self, learning things about yourself to get to the next step, what to do once you get to that next step, and you help a lot with that. Yeah. So I guess for the people who are just tuning into this, who are new to you, just walk us through yourself and your journey to becoming even just a psychotherapist, having your own brand and everything.
Yeah. Honestly, it really came down to just finding that place where I could accept that I am just me. Right? Because for a long part of my life, I remember as a kid having this overwhelming sense that I wanted to be special, but I didn't know how, and I looked to everything else to be okay, how? Am I gonna be a basketball player? Am I gonna do this, do that, right? And it led to these masks that I started wearing in my life, trying to fit the expectation, trying to fit these molds, right? While also running away from just being who I am. And so what really happened for me was just I realized at a young age that I just need to try things. Now, I wasn't actually thinking from that lens, from an employment space. I was just hey, I'm just going to do any job, and as long as it's better than the next.
Just let me just do what I'm trying to do right now. Let me learn.
Let me learn, right? And I remember a really critical part for me was when I finally went to university, and I remember I was working full time, and then I had school, and I was trying to balance it. And one of my professors came to me. He's like, Shane, are you trying to work around school or school around work? And I realized that moment I was trying to school around work. And what that symbolized for me, it's in life, I was trying to fit molds around just being me. I was running away from this idea of trying to find myself and just find whatever I can cling on that made sense. So when I was going back to school, I was at school, but I was trying to work and get everything in school as second priority. So I felt in life, I was the second priority to myself and everything else mattered more. And then through this journey, and hardships, and I think that's one of the biggest pieces. It's understanding that hardships are going to be what defines you. And for me, kind of fast forwarding to where I'm at now, it took one of the, probably for most people, the most devastating hardship to then find myself. And that was in 2020 when my father passed away. And, he was struggling with his mental health, addiction, different things. But on the surface, kind of what we were talking about earlier, he had all the money. He had top-notch corporate job and everything. So they're
to everyone, I want his life kind of
exactly
thing.
Yeah. I knew people that really admired that, right? But I'm seeing it firsthand and what happens behind the veil, and just so desperately wanting someone to be happy, right? And which was reflecting that stage of my life, my people-pleasing behavior, right? So I associated if I can keep everyone around me happy, I can be happy. And then especially with him, it's if I could help him to be happy, then that means there's a possibility for me to be happy. So I constantly in the area of my life with everything I was doing, I put myself second, right? Whether it's a job, friends, relationships, family, whatever, I was second. So when he unfortunately passed and I saw that all that stuff that he had meant nothing and it was gone, and I'm stuck here now with what just happened. And to take it even deeper, right before he passed, Father's Day of 2020, we weren't talking, and I blocked him. And I even said that I wouldn't be surprised he passed away before the end of this year, right? And I voiced that. And I didn't understand the power of your voice, manifestation, and what that can be at that time, but that's the energy that I felt. 2 days later, he passed, right? And like, yes, I have this grief, trying to figure it out. But even then, I still went into my people-pleasing behavior. You know, at the time I was in a different relationship, I put that birthday ahead of being with my family before a funeral. Because I was afraid of just putting myself first.
Like, was it your birthday or that person's birthday?
That person's birthday. Oh, okay, it wasn't mine, right? But then, during that, and this is where like the spiritual journey begins really, it's the curiosity of like, what else is there? Because I felt my dad's presence. And I also felt like there was unfinished business. That curiosity led me on this path of just believing that there has to be more. Like, life has to mean more than
this chase.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the city and all the stuff that goes with it, right? Instagram and all that. Life, there needs to be more because this just didn't sit right. Like, my heart felt like there was something more there. And then on that, I started making decisions like for myself, like really being like, I want to do this. What my heart feels like it wants to do, I'm going to do it. Whether it's buying a condo or breaking up with a relationship, saying that like, I want to just focus on me, and then finding my soulmate a month after, right? And like everything else, promotions at jobs, all this stuff started coming my way because I started putting myself first and understanding this is my value here, right? And through that also just being open to like, instead of looking at life that it's happening to me, how can I start looking at it as if it's happening for me? And what are these experiences teaching me? So to kind of like summarize this in a way, losing my father taught me the most important lesson of my entire life, and it's that you are nothing if you're not willing to love yourself. And if that is not your top priority. Because you can please and give to everyone else, but what you give will never carry the same value than it could if it's coming from a place where you love yourself. Doesn't matter what capacity you're at with loving yourself, but just being open to that ability and that willingness to work on yourself from a place of your heart.
Just open up that veil of, okay, let me experience what self-love looks like. Yeah,
exactly. And like, what does that mean? Like that could be like, what is something that you want to do because you want to do it? Or maybe what's something that hurts that has happened to you, and feel it, like really feel it. Even if that means like you have to cry and like you have this armor you built up, or even if that means you got to go to therapy, or if it means like you got to talk to a friend, right? Like that is so important, because in order for you to begin healing, you have to be willing to take that Band-Aid off, right? So if you want to be like get to a place where you're really loving yourself, then you got to be willing to allow the wound to bleed if it needs to, but know that it's not going to bleed forever, right? Like when we rip off the Band-Aid, like it bleeds for a second, but guess what? Oxygen comes, life comes to it, and then you begin to scab, and then soon that wound is gone. Maybe there might be a mark, but then that's the next level. It's like, what does that mark represent to you?
And it sounds like a lot of it is like, you took a lot of your experience having to learn, and you are very self-aware. And even like, I got to commend you, because that level of awareness of, okay, I was in a people-pleasing state. I did have to do this to get out of that. I was in a state of not understanding self-love. I need to get to that point and understand your words of manifestation. There's a lot that you learn, and it sounds like you took a lot of introspective time. You took a lot of time to introspectively look at yourself, and you learned a lot. And from that journey of learning a lot, you found something you were passionate about, and you found that thing where you're like, I just enjoy learning this. I enjoy helping people like learn in this way, because I recognize I have something that I learned that other people may not understand. And it's interesting, that's a lot of where I developed this podcast, because I had a lot that I had to learn even for myself. And there's things where you're saying I could relate so much too, because it's like, I remember for myself that journey of taking myself and be like, okay, I need to start learning what like actually take care of myself, actually what self-love looks like, take myself out from my traumas and be like, okay, I'm allowing these things to flood my head, limiting beliefs that I have, put it out there. I pretty much put it out there in the world without realizing I'm putting
Yeah.
it out there, and I'm putting these limits on myself from doing that. And the whole mindset of like, okay, I need to start letting my words, everything that I say, everything I do, it becomes who I am.
Yeah.
So even what you're saying as well with you saw how like, okay, having that financial balance, that's great, and it's something that can help you a lot. But when you're spiritual, your mental, your physical, they're not balanced as well. You're still gonna feel it because you didn't get or even give yourself, whichever one it is.
Yeah.
You didn't have that time to just balance these things as well through the process. And people think a lot like, oh yeah, if I get all this money, everything is just gonna work out on its own. No, you have to work on these things through that journey, and that's where I focus on those four pillars a lot with this platform as well, because yeah, you need to allow yourself to realize that these are also things you're going to have to focus on to have not what I believe is the goal of happiness, but
Yeah.
peace
Yeah.
and balance as a goal.
Yeah, exactly. And like with that, like I have this framework that I work with, and I call it resistance versus danger, right? So danger would be, let's say I give you this bottle and I tell you to drink it and it's filled with bleach, right? Instantly, your automatic thoughts are going to say no, because that's probably going to kill you, right? Or make you really ill. It's not good for you. Whereas resistance is, let's say maybe today it's raining and you don't want to go to the gym, right? You know that deep down inside you should do that. It's good for you. It will benefit you. But then you're finding the excuse. Your mind is creating these excuses to block you from doing that. And the reason why this, like, understanding the two are so important is because now you can start looking at life from this lens, right? If you're feeling off about something, you're not sure what to do, ask yourself, is this dangerous or am I resisting? And then understanding that on the other side of resistance is a new appreciation for happiness, a new level of abundance that you can attract, right? Because you can look back on your life and think about when was a time like I was resisting something and I actually went through with it, right? And I can give you a great example for me. Last year, I quit my job, but prior to that, I had been like just not happy with it. I made up my reasons, like I need this because it's helping me to pay for school, like made up all the excuses, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna quit until like my placement starts, which was gonna start like this January. And I'm like, I know I'm gonna do that, right? And made up in my mind, cool. But then what happens is the universe and life starts to bring signs to you that you get to choose you want to listen. So I started feeling really uncomfortable with work. I was not happy. I was frustrated. I was getting angry. I was getting triggered, right? And then I realized that, okay, I'm resisting this. I'm making the excuse that I need to wait till then because I need to save more money or whatever it is. But then I was allowing those factors in this job, this paycheck, that to be more than my happiness, to be valued more than that. So I'm saying that this company or this job has the right to make me feel like right, for the next 3 months because that's my plan. So I'm literally telling myself, please make me feel like and this paycheck is worth it. And I was putting that above my happiness. So when I clued into that and I realized this was resistance and I quit, this weight was lifted off my body, right? And what happened is my business with what's good that I'm doing with my soul family, that took off. We had our launch party, huge success, blew us out of our expectations. And since then, we've been on this beautiful ride of growth and curiosity and abundance, right? Alongside with everything else that's been happening in my life. And that's all rooted in facing the fear, right? So quitting my job, I ranked that as, at that time in my life, probably in my top 5 fears
Mm-hmm.
of everything. Being unemployed, not having an income, getting married this year, like,
how am I going to do this?
how am I going to pay
Yeah.
for everything, right? All those thoughts and the anxiety that came.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the way up there, right below spiders.
Yeah.
Right? And I did that. And what I realized in that
Mm-hmm.
moment is by doing that, I now just found the cheat code. Because
Mm-hmm.
now I'm skipping levels. Because anything that isn't as scary as quitting your job, I can't be afraid of anymore.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's funny with one, man, so many things I'm thinking of what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
one I wanted to say with where you're talking about the resistance to danger and how you described it. It's so much to where, like, what I always say for people when I get to talk with one-on-one is I say, remember when you say things, your mind's first thought, the first instinctual thing that your mind's going to do without you even realizing is go straight to defense. So it could be with job. It could even be when you do something and your first thought is, I wasn't wrong for this. Yeah. When your first thought is thinking, no, I needed to do this. I need to do that. It's because your mind's first thought is always going to be protection. It's the reason why, if you ever see, sometimes you'll even see videos that are meant to be like those like optical illusions where something's flying towards you. Yeah. And the first thing you think is, I need to jump back. Yeah. Your mind's always going to defense, and it's being at least aware of how your mind's going into defense mode and how you can work with that. Yeah. And how you said, like, how you broke the code with working that. It's like, what I believe as being the matrix, it's not this big thing of like, oh, big or whatever it is. It's literally, it's whatever your life's binary code is. Pretty much. It's, you're in this cycle that you're not enjoying. That is your matrix. And you don't know how to get out of this regular loop. You have to put yourself in that mindset of like, okay, like what you did with when you finally quit and you're able to get things taking off everything. And you're like, this was what was holding me back from. Yeah. This is what was keeping me in the matrix. My mindset of letting my work be allowing work to take over my happiness pretty much. And once you broke that, you hit that. And that's like, that hit me. So like, as well, like worked in 9 to 5. Like I felt that so much. I'm like, man, I can relate to that so heavily. Yeah. And sorry to tell you.
No, like I would just say, like, with that, now that you realize this cheat code, right? You get to choose now. How do you want to proceed in life, right? Because if you know that if you essentially face your fears, you level up. So you can either still continue and empower that fear, or you can look at it as like, I have a superpower now. I literally can reframe, restructure my life by following this. So what did I do after that? I went skydiving. For my birthday, I went skydiving, and I was terrified. That was scarier than quitting my job to me, right? Because what skydiving represented was like relinquishing all forms of control, right? Because even with quitting my job, like, yes, I did that and it's beautiful, but I knew what I had in my bank account. I could rationalize. I can come up with a plan to like,
I'm able to do this, right?
Yeah, right? Like, obviously there's still a risk and depends where I choose to give my energy to, but skydiving, it literally meant I have to let go, and there's a probability that my chute won't pop or fly out or whatever it's called, and I might go smack on the ground and dead, right? So that right there, like, takes away all control. And the thing is with skydiving, the only thing that I was afraid of was going up. Because in that moment, like, everything leading up to it, but really getting in that plane going up, it's because I still believe that I could be in control. Because in my mind, it's like, well, you can back out. You can tell them no, like, you're allowed to. You won't get your money back, but you could do that, right? So during that period, that's where fear exists. Because fear exists in the illusion of control, right? So if you believe that you can control, then you can also conjure up fear. But when you stop and let go, like it is with falling out of a plane, you let go, what is there to be afraid of now? You just have to embrace the moment, the present moment, right? Because your anxiety lives in the future, your depression lives in the past. So when you're in the present, all that you have is this. So do you want it to be happy, or do you want to feel like shit?
Yeah, it's like, The funny thing is, like, the one thing I always say I want to do is skydiving.
Yeah.
And I've never thought, and I could visualize it in my head now, because anytime you're going up to extreme heights, as you're on the ground, it's like, oh, this is fun. And then as you get higher and higher, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm high up.
This is fucking high.
This is high.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And I have the option of backing up. Do I want to? I should do that. And you start thinking everything. And I can see how that relation that you recognize of anxiety being in the future. And
Yeah.
I love how you use that analogy. That was a bar you just spit when you said
Thank you.
depressions in the past, anxieties in the future. Because one thing I always say, I relate as well with that, is I always let people know, like, okay, it's good to parent your child, like parent your inner child, because that's what's going to help you with your depressive thoughts. To help you with your anxiety is something what I believe in doing is I will talk to my future self.
Yeah.
I will talk to my future self and say to myself, are you happy with what I'm doing right now? Am I doing what I need to do to be you? Because I want to be you. And I just let my future self, with everything I know my future self is going to be, talk with him and let him say to me, this part right here you're doing is leading you to me.
Yeah.
This stuff here is taking you away from becoming me. Be at least aware. I don't expect you. And it's funny because it's exactly what I believe in talking to your children as well. It's like, I don't expect you to listen to everything I'm saying and doing it. I just want you to be aware of what I'm saying, and at least understanding it. Because I think once you're aware in your head of, I'm aware of this, I know this, you realize that you can't plead the ignorance that you once had before. And it does make an impact. It does change you. You start to realize, take, for example, someone who's aware that they have an addiction, for example.
Yeah.
They can't overcome it overnight. It's not going to be overnight. It's like, okay, I know I'm addicted. I'm going to be clean tomorrow. Yeah. But the more they're aware of it, the more falling, it's like, I know what I was doing. I know why I did that.
Yeah.
That is that starting stage of at least becoming clean, becoming a different version of you, becoming better. And that relationship, as you said, that is so relatable, I think, in ways people don't realize, like, oh, let me at least learn to be aware and how much that can help there. And I know, as you were mentioning as well, with you having your business, starting What's Good.
Yeah.
You also, like, you did all the saving, everything to get to that point. How much did you think that where your mind was before quitting and getting yourself into it, where your mindset was, and how much that translated to where you were going down the line? How similar it was, and how much you ended up learning as you grew?
It kind of, I feel like it's kind of the same. It's hard to explain. So, like, specifically with What's Good, once the four of us really sat with it and like built like our framework of like what we wanted it to represent and like the intentionality behind it and what our values were. Because like with that brand, our value was to help change the world. We wanted to help heal people. We wanted people to be able to feel like access to like things that are good for them is their birthright. Right. So that's why, like, for example, with the brand, like everything's under $25 right now, because that is creating accessibility. So once we kind of aligned with that, I had this irrational confidence with it. I just knew like what we're doing right now, like I was already seeing that. And I'm like, I know this. We felt that vibration. But with other areas of my life, there was a lot of doubt that happened. Right. And one of the things that really helped me through all this was how I processed like my traumas from before. So I remember having this dream one night, and I was in like a room or something, and I don't know what was going on, but I felt stuck, right? And I remember like getting stressed and frustrated, and then I realized that the reason why I couldn't move was because I didn't notice this one small thing. It's like when you're playing a video game, right? You know, you're in a video game and, you know, you're stuck on a level, you can't get past it. And then finally, it's like that one tiny thing you missed that finally lets you to go. That's what I was experiencing. And then when I finally realized it was like oh, around me there's flowers and I need to like just enjoy this. Why am I rushing? And then I looked to my right and I saw my fiance standing there like smiling at me. And it clued in that with trauma and all these things, like situations we've experienced in our past, it's when do we first build the awareness, like you're talking about, that this existed, that I felt this, that this is real, right? And then now we find an understanding. So like being in that video game stuck there, why might have this situation happened for me? Instead of to me, so moving away from that ignorance or maybe the victim mode, but coming to a place of like, why did this happen for me? What lesson was I meant to learn from this? Right? So like going back to what I said with my dad, I was meant to learn self-love. So once you can find the lesson, doesn't matter how big or how small it is, right? Now what you can do is alchemize it. And you take it from this lead and you make it gold through your acceptance. Because now instead of this trauma being something that weighs you down, that holds you back, that stops you from moving forward, right? And just is only reflected as pain, you now can find gratitude. You now can thank it and be like, yes, it sucked. That pain was really difficult, but I am thankful for this experience because this experience taught me this, right? So this experience helped open this door that maybe I didn't realize. And that's how people can really get that cheat code with healing, is when they start going back and identify all these different places in their life, whether it's their childhood, teenage, whatever it might be, last week, and you start to find this understanding. And like, to give you another example, I remember we were driving in December last year. I was tired coming home from a market that we were working at, and I didn't look, and I changed my lane real quick, and like my car kind of tapped this guy, right? And right away, my automatic thoughts went like, oh, I'm an idiot, like blah, blah, like what the heck? Just anger, right? Yeah. And then thankfully also I had Mara beside me and she's like, okay, it's okay. And I took a deep breath and I'm like, I found acceptance. Okay, I made a mistake here. You know what? Let me just go check. And when I did that, my car had no damage. His barely questionable or whatever. I gave him $50, right? I even tried fighting him, but I gave him $50, whatever. And perfectly fine. It could have been way worse. But the reason why that's so symbolic is, you know, just the attitude I went with. He could have been said insurance. He would have like whatever, not been open to communicating. But the attitude I was able to go with from a place of acceptance, put down my ego. And it allowed me to lead with my heart. And I apologize, right? We're able to fix that. So I think that just kind of ties in when we think about like our life. How can we put down our ego and lead with our heart for ourselves and be that person for ourselves? Hold space and tell ourselves, yeah, you know what? It's okay. And you know what? That experience might be a part of making you who you are today, like you were saying, and knowing that this is your journey. And maybe this is what you're supposed to experience. Even like, this is my last thought here. Being a psychotherapist, you know, people ask me like, how do you take on all these traumas, all these things, these emotions from other people? And yeah, it can be overwhelming. That's where my self-care piece is really important. But most importantly, I always remind myself, this is their journey. And I'm just here for this part. And my role in their journey might be long. We might have months of sessions. It might be this one moment for them to experience, maybe someone who might care, or a different perspective, whatever it may be. And I value my role in their journey, no matter what capacity, because now I accept it. If they don't want to come see me again, cool. But if you want to work with me a lot,
we got some more sessions.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you said, you know, it's so funny with you saying, okay, this is my last thought.
Yeah.
You literally segued perfectly to what my next question was going to be for you. And that was going to be that, I was actually wondering, because I know you're also a psychotherapist with everything that you've gone through and learned. And I was wondering, because I see how you've gone through like your traumas and that self-awareness, how that helped for you. And for myself, there was levels of things that I went through, and I knew what that like was for me to come to acceptance of it. And I feel like I might even answer there along with this, but for those who probably need a bit of that answer there, what do you find is so similar with the people that you work with and having that, I'm trying to get that word right now, pretty much that jump, that like click in of like, oh, okay, this is a trauma, and this is what I needed to actually do to get past this trauma. What do you find is kind of usually that similarity with some of the clients that you have?
Yeah, well, I think the one biggest thing is they haven't been able to truly acknowledge and understand their trauma because they've never had a container to be vulnerable, to express, to even go there. So when I'm working with my clients, like that is what I am. I am this container. And then this 50 minutes or however long we're spending together, you have a safe space to just release whatever you want. You get to choose. I am just the audience with you. And I'm here to like literally hold space. And you decide what's going to happen here. And I think for so many people, they don't get that, right? They don't have that opportunity for them to just express without having to explain themselves, right? Just to like, this is how I'm feeling, and maybe it won't make sense, but I need to let it out. Or even better yet, when I have clients who might cry, right? I know for other therapists that I've spoken to, or just people in general, our first reaction when we see someone cry, fix it, go into fix it mode, right? Because what we don't realize is that we're the ones that are uncomfortable with their tears, right? As opposed to acknowledging that maybe they do need to cry. And this was something, like, yeah, I learned, but my biggest teacher is my mirror, which is most of the time my fiance, who will like help me to understand and see this. But yeah, for people who are crying, it's like maybe they just need someone to say it's okay and just cry as long as you need. And if our session today is just you crying, that's amazing, because maybe you've never been able to cry or never felt safe. So being this container for so many people unlocks, because now that trust is there and we can go places, and I might challenge you through different means, different techniques or whatever, and we can unpack and see like there's more to you. Like, let's peel it back. Let's take the masks off, put them to the side, and let you be here for you and see what happens.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, and it's so much sense, because I know for myself, a lot of it was being in that state of saying, yeah, I'm yeah, I react like this, but it's because I've seen this, I've experienced that.
Yeah.
And as I came to a point of realizing, it's like, I'm recognizing that there's other people I know who say that. I see where their mind is, and I can see how much that thought process has become them, and they let it succumb them. And I realized I don't want that to happen. And as I said that to myself, I don't want this to happen, and I'm watching myself say these things, I said to myself, I need to take a step back and actually deep what I'm saying right now. And I remember it was one evening I had to, so for myself, there's levels of, I grew up in a separate homes, right? Like mom here, dad there, and visitation, all of that.
Yeah. Every other weekend.
Yep. And from people that both my parents dated, I've seen good, the bad, the ugly. So not getting too, and it's funny because the only reason, like in like public space, I don't get too much into it, because there's things where I'm like, this isn't my story. Yeah. This is this is my mom's story. This is my dad's story, kind of thing.
It's whatever you feel comfortable with.
And like, I recognize like, what was I saying a second ago? When I was realizing like, okay, let me come to terms with, this is what I experienced from what they experienced.
Yeah.
And as I realized that, I was like, I need to also acknowledge they were going through something themselves.
Yeah.
Let me take a minute away from how I'm feeling from this, and acknowledge at least how they were also feeling. And it's not in a space to say how they're feeling is more important than how I feel, but it's a matter of saying that is valid. And I recognize through everything that they were trying through all of that. Yeah. So once I came to that acknowledgement and had that conversation as well, like you were saying, sometimes you need to have that. And a lot of times it helps when you verbalize and you say it out loud.
You externalize
it. It's so much. We all recognize in the smallest ways sometimes, and we think something in our head, that we say it out loud, and we're like, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why don't I just do this? In the smallest ways. But so that externalizing helps so much when you say it out loud, and you're like, oh, I literally that day just felt boom, peace.
Yeah.
Peace just hit me in that one moment of boom. So I could relate to that there.
100%, man. Like it's like you're cutting cords of like
Yeah.
this whatever feeling that was holding you down that you were resisting.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it comes
Resistance
back
to danger.
Exactly, right? So it's just like understanding that. And I think what's so beautiful what you're saying is like seeing like, yes, these are your parents or these are family or whatever. At the end of the day, they're just people.
Yeah.
Right? And they're humans experiencing a human experience. So in that, like, we're all going to associate with things differently, and not everyone's ready to face it. And that can be a really challenging place to be in, especially being the child in that situation, because like, if your life is improving, you so desperately want everyone else to be coming on for the ride. Yeah. Right.
It was funny is like the thing I relate so much with it, with what you just said, with like everyone's human. It's funny, like I hear some people say NPC, you're an NPC. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's good to just recognize all of us are NPCs and all of us are our own main characters. Because I look at it as the back of like when you look at like old Game Boy games and it's like you can travel, you can go to people's places and you just have to press A and you have a conversation with them. You're just like, okay, you're just another person.
100%.
But that person's still a main character in their story. And you're just an NPC in their story. Yeah. And when you realize that we're all NPCs and stories, we're all main characters, and you start to realize I am really not that different from you. You just have a different story. You have a different journey from me. And I just need to accept you are going through this journey yourself there.
100%. Like,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, with that, like, I guess it ties back to like our brand with what's good, because our logo, like, probably can't see it on here. It's like one of my pendants here. Yeah. But that is the seed of life, right? It's our rendition of it. And what the seed of life represents.
We're gonna get a nice close up on that.
Yeah. But yeah, so like what the seed of life represents is just like, this is the point of creation. Like everything starts from a seed, right? So us in our mother's womb, we were a seed. So, and with that, it also highlights that if everything starts as a seed, then we are a part of that. So therefore, we are all connected, right? So going back to that. So yes, like NPCs and all this stuff. And I completely agree, the main character. And there's this one hypnotist that I learned a lot from just watching on YouTube named Dolores Cannon. And she talks about this belief that life is a movie. And we are the director, the main actor, the writer, everything. And we are choosing what is happening to us because we are choosing how we want to perceive it, right? And with NPCs and all this stuff, like I have this tattoo here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it there.
Yeah.
But this is a barcode. And when my father passed away, I got this right after the funeral. And if you scan it, it says Dad, and it's his birthday and everything. But the reason why I got it is he was a big fan of the Matrix, like you mentioned. And in the Matrix, like the way I take it is, you know, we scan in and scan out, right? Because Neo wasn't Neo in the Matrix. He had to get plugged in, right? So that kind of resembles like our souls, right? And our souls are plugged in to this body, this flesh, this avatar, right? So that's how I look at it. So when, you know, this kind of ties into grief, if you look at it from this lens, you know, no one's actually dying. It's just their avatar is no longer in use, but their soul may have a different purpose, right? Maybe they're going to be in a transition. Maybe they reincarnate, whatever it might be, but they're still here and we feel them, right? And it's that understanding. So that's why this is so important to me, because it's just understanding that I chose to be here. My soul chose to come in to this body. Like, I don't know, did you ever watch the movie Soul?
No, but you know what's funny? My sister was telling me to watch it. So my sister watching. I'm sorry I didn't watch it yet.
You need to watch it. All right? That movie,
yeah,
phenomenal. And it really speaks to it because the souls are, you know, getting ready to come into this earth, and like they identify what their inspiration, their spark is, or I think it's called the spark in the movie, right? And that's kind of like what happens. So if you believe that maybe that's the case, then the things that guide your heart, that really make you happy, no one can take away from you, that like you feel driven by, perhaps maybe that's what your soul had already predetermined. This life that you're living, you know, it's a matter of trying to find that pathway, So for example, hardships that we have, maybe it's because we got a little off course, like kind of like what you were saying, right? We get a little off course and our soul's trying to bring us back. But if we're not paying attention, we got to learn the hard way, right? And that hard way gets harder and harder and harder until we learn, right? So for some people, it might be, you know what? Maybe riding a bicycle for you just isn't it. And they keep getting in accidents, right? Or maybe someone who drives really fast, right? They keep getting speeding tickets or whatever, but they're like resisting, keep fighting it. Like, I need to go fast. I need to go fast. And maybe what they're trying to be told is they need to slow down in life and pay more attention. So the universe might try to teach you that. And if you're not going to listen, you start off with a speeding ticket. Then you start off with like a small accident. Maybe that accident gets worse. Maybe someone else, you see something until you realize what you were trying to be taught. Yeah. And obviously that's like kind of an extreme, but that, who knows? That's life.
You look at the blueprint of what you're pretty much saying, like you're going to go through certain things. And we all know people who experience things. It's like, man, I'm trying to tell you this right now. And you hear it's like, it gets worse, or at least their trauma. Sometimes it's just like, it gets worse because your trauma just deepens because you didn't learn this lesson. Yeah. So it could literally be on the outside. It's like, okay, you went through this and this is so similar to this over here. But for you, I'm seeing your trauma go like this. I'm seeing your, how much you're getting in your own head more from it grow and grow and grow because you've not learned the lesson you need to learn from this. Exactly. And when you, like you were saying earlier, when instead of saying, what did life do to me? Instead of saying, what's life doing for me? Yeah. It allows you to put yourself in a different mindset of saying, okay, this is happening and that's fine. I was supposed to learn this and I'm happy I've learned this. And just wanted to say, because you're mentioning though what's good, and I really want to bring it to this because I really love what you have here, and you have the beard oil here, and I see your beard and I'm like, man, I'm trying to get my beard to this and it's shining. I can tell you use the product. It's great. And like what I love with you having this is one of the biggest things that you know even for myself is that focus on skincare. Yeah. And I've been around a lot of, and it's not just women, I think it's men as well that have this feeling of, I'm not attractive enough. And when I realized how much into your own physical, when you put more time into it, the more confidence that you have in your appearance and more you're able to walk with it. Yeah. And I know a lot in the male spaces, that focus is on working out so much. And it's around going to the gym and all that. But there's so much more that you could put the time into to make yourself feel and look better. And skincare is a big thing of that. And I'm glad you guys have that as well. And I feel like you had your own like skincare journey that made you and your team end up wanting to have such a great skincare brand. So I was just wondering what your journey was like.
Yeah, like, so it's really interesting because I feel like the true meaning behind the journey was seeing the power of collaboration and seeing how important it is to find space where you can trust and collaborate and realize we're meant to do things together. Because, you know, if you were to ask me, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I'm going to start a skincare brand, I would have said no, right? Because I didn't know, like I had little things, but like a lot of my influence on like skincare for most men was rooted in our significant other and what they kind of encourage us to do and whatnot, right? So the real, like, I guess, guiding force to our brand started with one of the co-founders, Milan, because Milan was in her undergrad. She couldn't like afford natural products and the chemicals were just horrible, right? And she couldn't afford it. So then she got curious and started trying to make her own. And over years kept doing it and like, you know, give it to family and whatnot. And then last year? No, 2 years ago in 2022, I think it was around like September, October. You know, like she had her stuff and they were great and we were using it phenomenal. And at that point in time, I had bought like this infuser because I wanted to make edibles. And I had this like great idea. I'm going to start a business doing this. Because prior to it, I had launched a different business called The Cozy Chef. And I was doing like catering and stuff. But then I left that because my heart, like I lost passion for it. It served its purpose for me. but I really wanted to start a business, right? And I bought this and I'm like, okay, we're gonna make edibles. We made our first batch, like made our own oil, and it was like amazing. We're like, great. And then we're like, let's combine this and make like the skincare, and then we'll also sell edibles, right? And then we were trying to rush to launch in January of 2023. Like we gave samples out to people, got some good feedback, and we're like, hey, let's do this. And our first instinct was we wanted to make it pay what you can, right? Because we really wanted to give love to the world.
Get it out there.
Yeah, but most importantly, we wanted people to be able to access it and like feel like, you know what, you deserve to have natural, organic things that are good for you. But then we realized that the world's not ready for pay what you can. And realistically, we are not ready as well, because we also need an income. Yeah. So that led to like how we developed our price point and all that. And then my interest with it was seeing the different modalities that can empower people to love themselves, right? Because we have our different triggers. So our skin can be one thing, right? But also sometimes what I think it really comes down to is intentionality, right? And how intentional are you in your life, right? And anything that you do. So are you aware of what you're doing, and are you aware that you are choosing to do it? And the way I look at like with skincare, especially like for men, we make the excuses. I'm lazy. I don't want to do this. Oh, nothing can change. Blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I don't moisturize, whatever it might be, right? But when you have those thoughts and you're able to then cross to the other side and set the intention that I'm going to try something. I'm going to try something that might be a little uncomfortable and do something new. Doesn't matter what it is, but in this case, it's skincare. And then you start feeling good about it. You're like, oh, I like how this smells. I like how this feels. I like how I look, whatever it might be, right? You don't realize, but you're planting that seed that this is what you need to do in life. You need to try new things. You need to open yourself up, right? And coming back to the resistance, all of that. And that's what started for me. And when I could see that this has so much potential to be such a great thing for people, and the market out there is very capitalist driven in the sense that, you know, we're going to charge an arm and a leg for all of this. And when I was like, we have the potential to be really big. And the other part of our brand is we wanted to do wellness events, right? And that was something that Mara and I, my fiance Mara, were very passionate about, because we want to help people heal. So now you have this product, which is planting the seed for you to come and maybe try other things, right? So we did an inner child hike. And this was last September. We did it at Hyde Park. We did a heart opening meditation. You know, Mara led some group Reiki. I did some art therapy with people. And that like really propelled this. And we're like, whoa, we have the skincare, we have this, and we're doing so much. And so for me, it was just really being attracted to the ability to connect with people where they're at, and not thinking that healing is one dimensional. And then the thing that I'm most proud about, especially like we're talking about the beard oil here, is so with our brand, like if you look at all our products, you'll see different colors on it, right? And the colors represent our different energy centers in our body, so our chakras. And yellow specifically represents our solar plexus, right? And that's our self-worth. And for a lot of men, we struggle with our self-worth, right? It's how do I love everyone else before myself? Someone gives you a compliment, it's like, why are you doing that? Or there's a lot of men who don't want to have themselves seen, right? I have teenage clients now who are growing out their locks. And the main reason is because they're trying to cover their eyes, right? They want to hide from the world because of social anxiety, how they feel about themselves, that judgment and all of that. So with all that being said, this product, specifically being a beard oil and everything, was created to challenge that, to give men something that, you know, this could be my own thing, right? And yes, like, you know, it's, to some it might just be an oil, but to me it's deeper than that, because it's like, this is one product that if you're in a relationship, your spouse isn't being like, okay, I'm doing this, so copy me. Like, this is, you are choosing to do this. So that power of choice. And then the affirmation that we put on the side of the bottle here, it says, I value the being that I am. And we encourage men to open that door and to express and use an affirmation to love themselves, right? And like, that to me is the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we willing to say, like, I am worthy, I am valuable, I am enough, I am
Mm-hmm.
loved, I
Yeah.
am loving myself.
And it is a journey, and like literally,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to dive into more of what you just, because you perfectly said exactly what
Thank
you
you.
do for like a lot of what us as men we go through, and we don't, because so much of our focus is don't focus on compliments, ignore your emotional side, and just do, and you have to just be this blank face into the world.
Yeah.
We don't learn how to. We don't learn how to even understand or even grow our emotional side, to even grow our physical side as much as we can.
Yeah.
And having something like this, it gives that time, like, okay, let me appreciate myself for a second. And the thing that's so important is once you learn to appreciate yourself so much and you give yourself those compliments, that does so much for yourself alone. Where what happens, I think, for a lot of us as men is when we meet that first woman who gives us that one compliment, and it doesn't even have to be her giving it to us and like, I want to be with you kind of way. It could just be a passing compliment.
Yeah.
It means so much, and we let that hit our hearts so heavily. And now that woman means more to us than she ever anticipated
Mm-hmm.
meaning to us, because she did something that we never knew how to do for ourselves in the first place.
Yeah.
So that does so much. And the fact that also you're this passionate, I believe that with a brand, you need to be this passionate. If you have something you're this passionate about, you're on the right track, because
Yeah.
you're understanding everything of what you're trying to get with the community you're trying to build with what you're creating. And it's a great
Yeah.
thing that you're doing
Thank
there.
you.
I want to say on top of it is like, once you've learned how to give yourself those compliments, once you've learned to acknowledge that emotional, you're able to go into everything else a lot better. And I think that's what happens for a lot of men as well, is we have certain angers that we show. There's certain side of a lot of men that only our partners ever see, because we never learn to deal with these things, because we're told to ignore all these things.
Yeah.
And it's like all the things that we're doing on the face, it's great. Be a leader, be all these things. But when you're doing these things, the back end of it, we have to learn how to control and manage at the same time, so we can go into what we do
Yeah.
with a balanced heart, a balanced mindset. So we're not harming the people that are close to us, who are
Yeah.
seeing this side of us no one else gets to see, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like being honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, like for me, the number one thing like in this pursuit was first finding a way to get comfortable with saying I love you, Shane. Right. And going back to my mirror, Mara being my mirror a lot of the times would challenge me and be like, look in the mirror, say you're beautiful, say you love yourself. And I'd be like, oh nah, I don't want to do this. Right. And so what I had to do, like, yes, I was trying to do that, but in that pursuit, I started journaling, right? Because I like to write. And, in my journal, I think this was back in 2022 now, I set the intention that no matter what I write, I will always conclude every journal entry with I love you, Shane.
Yeah.
Even if I don't feel like I believe it in that moment, I always do that. So what that did, without me even fully understanding at that time, was it gave me space, a blank canvas to write any emotion that I felt. If I felt anxious, if I felt like I was being dumb, whatever it might have been, and then also give myself the opportunity to counter those thoughts. So there might have been times where I was like, yeah, like I'm really worried about work today. I had this big thing going on. And then I could maybe, like, it took a little bit of time, but I'd start being that other voice and saying, you know what, you've been here before. You felt this way. The context of the situation might be different, but the emotions were the same.
Yeah.
That anxiety, whatever it might have been, reminding myself, right? And then from doing that, I would counter that anxiety in my journal and then just finish with I love you, and allowing myself, you know what, no matter how you felt, even if I couldn't counter that day, I'll still love you.
You know what? I challenge you, because I used to do a thing like that. What I always add with it is, you add the I love you, but you also say, I know because I did this and that. And where that's done for me to put that in my mind is, it's funny because my dad is someone who, you probably relate as well. He wasn't someone who always said it.
Yeah.
When he did say it, though, you felt it.
Yeah.
I was like, he doesn't say it much. But his biggest thing is, you should know because I did this and do that. And it's funny because I understood, for me at least, it made me understand it in that way, and it helped me even learn. When I took that, I was like, okay, let me take some pieces from that, learn it. And once I started saying to myself, I know I love myself because I do this, I do that. I know, I look good because I did this, I did that. It helped me learn to not just have this love for myself, I have this comfortability and this like it just has that extra knowledge of I know to it.
Now,
Yeah.
are you cool with me challenging that a little bit?
Do it.
Okay. So the only thing that I would be mindful of is that when you give the because after I love you, you then now set a condition for it, right? Because now it's like, what if you didn't do those things? Would you still love yourself?
You're right. It's learning. There's not to put that conditioning. You're very right about that. So I appreciate you trying, because you added that. That's what I like, is being able to add that extra layer of like, okay, we could deep this, because you're right. If you're black and white listening, because a lot of people are going to be listening very black and white, there is that extra layer of understanding. I didn't do this, but let me at least understand for myself. It's okay I didn't do this because I did this other thing.
Yeah.
And there's all these things that we do that express it. So I appreciate you for doing that.
It's like the power of our words, right?
Yeah.
So exactly what you're saying is very valid. It's just maybe if you restructure it, and like those things, I did this, and I love you, right? Instead of saying it because then now it doesn't matter what you do. And one of the other big things that's kind of also helped on this like journey is embracing imperfection, right?
Yeah.
Because when we make the goal imperfection, then no matter what you do is a success. And that translates to having a value-oriented mindset versus a goal-oriented mindset. So to give an example of this, there was this video I saw. I remember my therapist had showed me, it really stood out to me. 2 kids, they're in a car going to Disney World, right? The goal-oriented kid is saying, okay, when are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? The value-oriented kid is saying, wow, like I'm seeing new places. Like this is cool. I've never been in a long car.
Yeah.
Right? Then the car breaks down. So now the goal-oriented kid is pissed off. He's disappointed. Right? Yeah. He's disappointed. Whereas the value-oriented kid, tow truck comes, he gets to ride in a truck. He's never been in a truck. He's like, wow, I've never seen the world look like this before. And the reason why that's so important is because when you shift into a value-oriented mindset, what it does is it helps you to appreciate the effort, the try, right? As opposed to the outcome. So when you're trying to be embracing imperfection, then now you just focus on what are all the things that I tried, right? So today I tried to come on a podcast. Yeah. Does it matter how like the outcome is? Like what if I bombed it? No, the intention was trying, and I'm proud of myself for trying. So anything else is a cherry on top. Yeah. Right? And you apply it to everything else.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And again, like you said, you did this podcast and you did amazing. And I feel
Thank
I need to bring you on for like so many more episodes, because I could tell we can touch so much things, and you're saying so much things that I really wanted to bring out when I started this. So I appreciate you so much as a guest. Yeah. And for everyone watching this right now, please make sure you follow Shane Lyons. Please make sure you get yourself a What's Good product, whatever it is, to help yourself out. Yeah. Again, I thank you so much for being on here. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please, if you enjoy this, share it with someone you feel will enjoy it as well. Add with the algorithm so more people can see it by liking it, subscribing, whatever you can do. Thank you so much if you do it. And once again, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.